Joining us now as our final guest is Congresswoman Cori Bush, co-chair of the Equal Rights Amendment Caucus and Congressional Black Caucus member. Thank you so much for joining us, Congresswoman. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here with you all.
Absolutely. So we have been talking today about Black women in politics, the power of Black women, the power of Black women voters. And I just want to take a moment because last March, you and I believe Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley really took the lead in showing the power and strength of Black women when you revitalized the introduction of the Equal Rights Amendment. Can you talk to me just a little bit about not only what the ERA would do for Black women, but why it's Black women leading the charge to have this amendment passed?
Absolutely. And thank you, Cheyanne. So it took me a long time to even realize that the ERA was something that we needed to speak on in this day. I think I kind of felt like this was something for white women to champion. White women had all, that's who you heard talk more about it. But it wasn't until one day when I realized that so many of the things that we are working on and Black women are fighting for, or where so many of the disparities lie, are all like under this umbrella of what the ERA would do. The Equal Rights Amendment, which is over 100 years old. It turned 100 years old since its drafting on my birthday last year, July 21st. So we're at almost 101 years, and gender equality is still not enshrined in the U.S. Constitution. And so for us, for Black women, Rep. Pressley and I just decided that it needed a home, first of all. It needed a home, and this is the first time in the history of the ERA that Black women carry this legislation. First time, 100 years. And so we decided, give it a home so that we can talk about the issues and we can rally our members of Congress. So whether it's violence against women, housing discrimination, the gender wage gap, the racial wage gap, abortion access and rights, so the reproductive freedom, reproductive justice, trans rights, LGBTQ rights, so much of it is housed. Healthcare equality is housed under the Equal Rights Amendment. And for us, if we can get the Equal Rights Amendment done, first of all, the word women goes into the U.S. Constitution, but then also it will be, the Equal Rights Amendment will be an anchor. It will be an anchor to pass better laws or to improve the enforcement of laws that are already on the books. And so that's what we need. We need this country to recognize that we don't just have it because we exist. We don't just have our rights and our freedoms because we breathe. That's not what's happening. As we can see, our rights are being stripped away from us, and so we want our country to affirm them.
When I think about all of the many women's rights movements that this country has had, and I know sociologists will say we're in like fourth wave feminism at this point, I believe, and I think about when we learn about it and the many women who were involved, but the way that many of us who in this room would have been relegated to the back of those movements,
yes,
even as we were helping propel them forward.
Yes.
So I want to take a minute to ask you, what is it about the strength and the power and dedication of Black women that keeps us saying we're still going to keep pushing forward?
Yes, thank you for that question. So Pauli Murray, the great Pauli Murray, I believe, said it best, and I'm going to paraphrase her. She said that Black women have the most to gain from the adoption of the Equal Rights Amendment. Black women are doubly victimized by the twin immoralities of racial and sexual bias. And so because of that, we understand that because we have the most to gain, we have to be the ones. We can't wait for anyone else to speak up to us or to speak to our situation and our challenges the way that we can. We have to speak up for ourselves. Now, it's great when other people will advocate with us, will work with us and be those co-conspirators with us, but we have to make it clear what's happening to us. And I think that that's something that if we're walking through living a life where we're told we should, why aren't Black women doing this thing this way? Why aren't, but in order to get there, Black women carry the most student debt than anyone else in the country. Women carry the most student debt, but Black women carry it the most and the longest. So that's an issue. But we also only make anywhere from 63, 64 cents on the dollar that our white counterpart makes. So then that helps to push us back even more. So we have barrier after barrier. And so for Black women to speak up and say, this is what's happening to us, but we're also going to be the ones to champion moving forward, how we move forward, it's critical because our voice matters. And so to be the ones, like you said, relegated to the back, when you see those videos, that archival footage of Black women being in the back, all the suffragette movement and, all these women, these white women in white, marching. And then you have Black women all the way in the back, and Black women are getting, pummeled with rocks and all of that, just trying to be a part of a movement to say that I should have the right to vote, to say that I should have, autonomy, the autonomy of my own body. We didn't stop there because we understand what happens next. And so it's the legacy. When we think about prior to 1973, when the Dobbs decision, the right to abortion happened. I'm sorry, Roe v. Wade, not Dobbs. When Roe v. Wade was enacted, Black women, the leading cause of death for Black women was documented as sepsis that would come from unsafe abortions.
I want to get a little bit personal because I think about that legacy that you're talking about and the way that so many Black women intergenerationally have been driving the nation forward and toward progress. And obviously today we've seen just so many Black women on this stage. But I think we would all be lying if we didn't acknowledge that there's a lot of hate and vitriol that comes with us being in these positions. Yes. And I speak from experience as a race and politics reporter, and I know this is something you are familiar with as well, is the hate mail, the calls, the emails, all of that. How would you look into this crowd and look to our audience who are watching and say, in spite of that, or despite that, we still need you. We still want you to be part of this.
Absolutely. Because what they want is to silence us. They want to shut us down. They want to keep the status quo. And so they use these tactics. These are old tactics. There's nothing new under the sun in this situation. But it is effective. They understand that. And so if they can keep, if the critiques and the attacks, if the torment, the bullying, the intimidation, the harassment, if all of that can just keep going every single day, it's been so bad to where I even had to evacuate my office for a week. I had to close down my office in St. Louis and have my staff home because of the hate, because of the threats. So, and we're not talking about just some folks, some trolls on social media. We're talking about people that actually feel like it's their duty to take out Cori Bush, and for me, taking out Cori Bush, if you miss and you hit my staff, so I have a problem with that. So it's not just about me, but for those of us that have made the decision, you know what? It's about the legacy. It's about what comes next. And so I'm less afraid of what you can do to me. I'm more afraid of what happens if we don't get the change that we seek. That is what my issue is. So I'm not afraid of, because let me tell you, bullets have already come my way. Bullets have come my way. Bullets have hit my vehicle multiple times, even with my child in the car. I have been through attempts on my life multiple times. But I know that if they could shut me up, if they could shut up other people like me, then that's how they win. And so they're frustrated that they can't. And so we need more people, the more of us that stand together, and say that we won't allow these attacks, this violence that they're trying to throw our way to stop us. The same way that folks crossed that bridge and the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma and said, even though we see what's on the other side, I'm going to go anyway because this is what we need. This is about the legacy. This is about what comes next. In the same way, we will stand. So in the face of all the adversity, and this is not just fake stuff for television, for likes or anything like that. This is real life, what we actually face, what so many Black women in politics face. And just Black women in community and organizing and in different parts of this movement. You all, we need you. We need you. But part of that need is to know who you are and what you stand for. Every day I wake up in the morning, I know who I am. I know what I stand for. And I know if they take me out today, that I stood 10 toes down for my community and for my people, and that they can never take from me.
Y'all hear this passion? Can we just take a moment? You know, every time I'm at a press conference with you, and they're always like, oh man, we gotta follow that up, or we got preacher Cori Bush in the house. That's what they always say. And I think we can hear that organizer background of yours really shining through. And before I turn it over to see if any of our audience members might want to ask a question, I do want to ask you, how much of that organizer personality, character, drive plays into the legislation that you bring forward to the House floor every day?
Every bit. Every bit. When I enter Congress, I coined the term politivist. I said that I'm going in as the politician and the activist. And I'm a politician just because of the definition of the word, you know, it's the actual definition. But I'm a politician and an activist because I said that I would not let go of my movement background, my organizers and activists, my protester family that I work with, Ferguson Frontline, you know, I won't let go of them. But all the other areas where I organize, we are all coming to the table together. So when we craft legislation, that's how we craft our legislation. We work with those groups. We ask for advice. We ask for counsel. And we work together to draft legislation, because the motto of my office is to do the absolute most for every single person in our district, starting with those who have the greatest need. So that's how we do that.
Absolutely. So we don't have a microphone for questions, but if somebody would like to speak loudly, I would like to offer you a moment to ask the Congresswoman a question. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Amber Dodd.
You can stand up, yeah.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Amber Dodd. I'm the Howard.
So the question is basically, how do I strategize to center the people who have the greatest need? Is that correct? First of all, because I was one of those people. So that's how I look at it. I think about where I was and what I needed, and how people crafting legislation thought that they were doing such a good job, but because they had never been through those struggles, they didn't know what they were stepping over. And so I've been unhoused. I lived in the car with my 2 children for a number of months, and my partner at the time, and we would just park in front of someone's home and just hope that the police didn't stop us, you know, because we had this strange cars in front of someone's house all night. And I couldn't go to sleep really because I was worried that my 2 babies in the back, like if it would get too cold at night, if one of them I would wake up and if one of them would be dead. So I was mixing formula in the bathroom at a local McDonald's. And so I've worked as a low-wage worker, uninsured. I entered Congress as an uninsured person. I have almost lost my life to domestic violence on multiple counts. The person left me for dead. So I have been through so many of the things that people in our communities have gone through. I have asthma right now partly because of the environment in which I live. So over and over again, I am the people that I serve, you know, and so that's how I'm able to do it. I look at what it was like to be unhoused, what it was like to be sexually assaulted, what it was like to be, you know, to suffer domestic violence, and just so many other things. And how do I craft legislation to be able to speak to those things that you go through? And for one quick example, when I decided to do a protest on the Capitol steps, some of you may have seen it, because the eviction moratorium was about to expire, and 11 million people were going to be at risk for evictions. And I'm like, how do we, as Congress, just go on vacation, go home, and let that happen? And so I didn't know what else to do. I said, well, let me just do a protest on the steps. But one thing that was brought to me was people were like, oh, well, they can just go to food pantries and get food. They can do this and that. And I was like, do you not realize that in some places, food pantries you can go to once a month? You know, so how do you get food for the rest of the month if you can only go once a month? And they're going to give me milk. Where am I putting milk if I'm living in my car? Like, it was those types of things. And people were like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. So.
I think we have time for one more. Again, you might have to speak a little loud.
Oh. Just speak in here. Okay. Hi, my name is Courtney McLean. I've been an activist in South Carolina for the past 4 years, and I definitely resonate with how all of the violence, especially being in the Deep South. So my question is, how do we create more confidence and getting people to come out and come to these protests, do grassroots organizing, and just making sure that people feel comfortable, even though we do know the risks that come with activism.
And so I think part of it too is finding out what people's thing, because not everybody is on the ground, show up to the protest activists. Some people are more for, using their microphone, for in journalism. Some people are, the ones that need to be in the courtroom, with their activism, or the boardroom. So figuring out what that is. Or some people are the activists with the check, because the check matters. But then you have the folks, it does matter, because we got to eat when you're on that front line, and all of that. But the folks that do feel like I can be on the ground, it's about making that connection. Why we need you in particular on the ground, what you bring to this front line. That's the part that I think sometimes that we miss. People feel like, well, somebody else will do it, or I may lose my job, I may lose my friends, which are all very true, because that happened to us during the Ferguson uprising. But it's about helping them to see that you bring something to this movement. You exactly who you are, what I tell people is, when I was running for office, I would say, I don't care if your thing is tying shoes well, because at some point while I'm out here knocking these doors, my shoes may come untied, and everything. I don't care if you collect stamps, like something is your thing. So letting people know that something is your thing, and you can bring that to this movement on the ground, make the signs, whatever it is. So I think that's part of it, but them knowing why how this affects their kitchen, how this affects their bathroom, how this affects them when they go to the doctor and they hop up on that exam table. It's about making that connection, making it really life applicable.
I want to give a very heartfelt thank you to Congresswoman Cori Bush for joining us today. Thank you so much. We always appreciate you.
Thank you all.